Thanks so much for taking the time to be here today. I'm going to be talking about monetizing live ops, specifically through the lens of Hutch games. So a little bit about me. My name is Ian Griffiths. I'm a product owner at Hutch. I've been working in free-to-play for just over 10 years. I've released 18 free-to-play titles, including things like FIFA Superstars and The Sims Social. And my most latest one is at Hutch, which is Top Drives. And as far as I understand it, they've been played by over 500 million people. So that's a lot. So who is this talk aimed at? Primarily, it's aimed at small to medium-sized studios that are interested in live ops development. You may already know a lot of this stuff, so you know. But if you don't, this may just clarify some of Hutch's thinking around live ops. A little bit about Hutch. We're a small studio in central London near Old Street, so not far to walk. About 75 people, and we focus on mobile free-to-play racing games. We started back in 2011 with a paid title, which was called Smash Cops. We followed it up shortly after with Smash Cops Heat, which was a free-to-play game on the same sort of basis. Our first big success in 2014 was MMX Racing, which was the first time that we were able to scale up our user acquisition to make a more profitable game. I joined very early on in the development of Top Drives as product owner, so that was back in 2016. And since then, Top Drives was the first game where we looked at building a sort of real live ops framework, and it's something that we've been building on since then. So just a little bit about Top Drives and explaining what that game is, because it may be fairly niche. Top Drives is a car-based collectible card game. We've got over 1,000 cars in the game, licensed from 45 different manufacturers, and in the game we encourage players to build up a deck of cards and compete against others, as well as play through their campaign in a range of diverse performance challenges. So this will be a little video that explains it, if it works. Yeah, it works. I had music like, wah. It's exciting. Ah, cards. Yeah, cards, look at those. So the idea is that what you're doing is you've got these performance challenges, so it may be a quarter-mile race, or it may be like an ice hill challenge. So you want to pick like the off-road car, the 4x4 car with off-road tyres. Maybe if you've got a mile sprint, you want the car with the fastest 0 to 100, and players compete through those. So what are live ops? I'm sure everybody's answered this question like 1,000,000 times. I'll give you Hutch's how we tend to think of live ops, and it's a bit of a sentence. So we think of live ops as the focus on the continuous operation and on the iteration of a game that is delivered as a service to an audience. I'm not sure if that's a sentence is a sentence is a sentence, but it's close. So why do we use live ops? So primarily it falls into a few areas. First, we can think of acquisition, right? So we're very much operating in a red ocean. So there's considerable competition. User acquisition is really quite high. So what we want to do is maximize the lifetime value of our players by delivering an enjoyable and engaging experience. And it's live ops that allows us to adapt this for them. In terms of retention, you know, it's one thing to get hold of a player, but keeping them is quite another. So we use our live ops in order to deliver an evolving and responsive experience to them that changes over time and keeps them engaged in the long term. And then monetization-wise, obviously, live ops, we're able to build a relationship with our players through our community, and we can see how they're engaging with the game, and that allows us to know more about them. And the better we understand our players and how they interact with the game, the more meaningful and monetizable content we can create for them. You know, so how this works for Hutch as a business. So this is sort of our revenue, our gross bookings. By looking to build Top Drives and our other games as sort of 5 to 10 year franchises, what we're really looking at is sort of utilizing that as stacking revenue, so we become more and more profitable over time, because these things just run for so long that we can stack them. So, you know, in order to monetize live ops, of course, you need to design for live ops when you're making your game. So we tend to start by thinking, you know, what is it that players want to buy? What are they interested in? So there are the tangible elements of monetization, that is meaningful game content. That might be like a car or something around the area. There's purchasable progression, so maybe they want to upgrade their car or get through the game a bit quicker. There are the intangible elements. So players may want to buy their way into a certain status. They may want to get the exclusive items in the game that are only available through monetizable elements. Perhaps you've built in that they need to pay in order to take part in competitive parts of the game. And of course, things like customization allow us to give players room to express themselves within the game. And then the elements that we have slightly more control over ourselves, so scarcity, which we bring in sort of time-limited offers, things that can rely on that scarce element. There's the impatient, so perhaps we put in appointment timers, or there's a certain amount of grind that they want to skip by. And then the last element that we don't control so much, but social proof. Maybe you've got a guild and everybody wants to become like the golden guild, so they all buy the golden stuff, and you buy into that, and it feels meaningful and important, and there's a social element to that. So, you know, in order to monetize live ops, we really need a game that supports many monetization options. And of course, when we look around the store and we look at the sheer amount of innovation that happens in the industry, there are many forms of monetization that can be applied to just about any element of the game. In my experience, in order to maximize our monetization potential, we really need an expansive metagame, right? So because so something like top drives is quite niche, we may not get that many players through the door, so we need an expansive metagame for them to buy into. And we build an expansive metagame on granular content, right? So if we just had like a small amount of content, we may want to look at how we can break that up into chunks that people can get over time or through purchasing, and extensible systems. So we may have a currency and we want to build onto that so we can tack on other elements. And all of that needs to feed into the core loop. And of course, by having content and systems that feed into the core loop, it's much more relevant and valuable to players because the benefit is seen directly through gameplay. So when I look at the sort of top drives features and systems that we focused on at launch, we had a single-player campaign. Actually, shortly after launch, we introduced the single-player time-limited challenges. We had player versus player multiplayer elements, events. We had this expansive collection part of the game, and we had quite a robust set of community features. So we had in-game forums that players can talk to each other through, as well as supporting a lot of the external socialization that players are engaging in. And you know, when we kind of look at this in terms of Bartle's taxonomy, Richard Bartle sort of player types, we were thinking, where do we really lean into with top drives? So we've got our killers, which is the sort of competitive element of the game, which obviously our PvP multiplayer leans into. As I mentioned with our socializing, for the socializers, we've got our robust community features. For our explorers, we've got quite an expansive single-player campaign. And then obviously where we're leaning most heavily into is the achievers side of things. So we've got that really expansive car collection, we've got our single-player campaign, and the challenges around that. So in terms of content, as I said, granular content is important, right? So we've got over 1,000 cars, and in order to have systems that lie on top of that, we have fusion systems and things so that we've got something to do with duplicates and having lots of different types. They sit across 7 rarities. About 70 or 80 we've held back as prize cards, so we can, basically they don't drop in the gacha system, so we can choose where we hand those out because they're very, very valuable to players. And we've always got a decent amount set back ready to go at any time. And crucially important as well is that we have a balanced economy, right? So it's really important that your economy is extensible and can allow for enough additions and modifiers to gameplay that players can buy into. So obviously that leads us to the main thing, monetizing in live ops. In my experience, you know, monetizing live ops, the first thing that we focus on in the game is delivering new content that is put through themed events and then supported with offers. In terms of a framework, we have that sort of new content or gameplay or systems or whatever it is, that feeds into an event. We have an entry restriction, so we might say that you need a special type of car or you need some other thing to get into the game. You may have an energy mechanic or a soft currency that that you need in order to progress through the event. As you go through the event, you're getting content that's relevant to it. We also support this with our offers, and then of course there's the carrot, and that's the sort of limited content. You want to get to the end of the event so you can get the really special stuff. So in terms of top drives, we've got our events carousel, and we can support some large number of offers. So here we've got like a 90s event coming up and a wet weather event coming up. This was one of our Chevrolet-based events. So I talked about restrictions, right? So we've got our entry criteria here. You need 3 Chevrolets. Where you can get 3 Chevrolets. We've got this handy upsell there for the American Dream Pack. And then the gameplay restriction being our sort of energy mechanic, which is race tickets. And you get 5, and we can set how quickly they regenerate, and you can buy more. So once you jump into an event, we just used to randomize, just fetch you an opponent. But we found that players don't really like sort of winning or losing 50-50, well, 50% of the time. And now what we do is we grab them 3 people above and 3 people below in the leaderboard and let them choose the kind of difficulty they want to get. And it's been very beneficial to them. Just another quick example of some of the races. So, you know, they're competing quite a considerable number of types of races. We've got this huge system that can resolve all kinds of races between different cars. So once they've done that, they come back to the event screen. They can see where they have changed on the leaderboard. An event will run for 3 or 5 days, and of course their final score will that will dictate what kind of prize they get. So this is where we're using that sort of limited, those prize cards and that limited content. We, of course, as I said, we support that with an offers system, so leading back into some of what drives players to purchase things. Well, we had a Chevrolet thing. It needed 3 Chevrolets. Here's a Chevrolet offer, right? Everything's tying back into itself. This is meaningful because it's very relevant to the event. It leans into the competition because it gives you a chance at a better deck. We make it very clear what it is that you're buying and the discount that's applied. And then we've got those scarcity elements. So it's a time-limited offer that runs, you know, in sync with the event. And we only allow you to buy a maximum of 10 of them. So coming back to that framework, how that looks with like a typical Top Drives event. So we've got our new content, some new races, some new cars. They're tying directly into an American Dream event. We've got our restrictions to play through. We've got our energy mechanic that is restricting you. We've got your earning content relevant to that event. And then the offers system are help pushing you through it. And then we've got those limited prizes, right? Everything ties back into each other. So, you know, obviously where live ops come in is that we can create these events and offers on the fly at any time, any number of them, without having to update the binary of the game, right? And it's fundamentally that means that we can build on what players like and engage with, and, you know, give them a more dynamic and interesting experience. So fundamentally, events, offers, and content are synergistic. They work best in the right balance and the right combination, and of course the right cadence, which we find over time. And it's live ops that give us the tools to benefit from all of this. So, you know, once we've designed our live ops and we figured out what we can do and how they work, we want to optimize, right? So at launch, you know, we do internal testing, we do soft launches in different areas, but even at launch, when we go worldwide, our knowledge is limited, and we rely on data analysis and player insights, but also a lot of contact with the community and understanding how they engage with particularly the metagame and the end game and the more esoteric parts of the game. That really helps us optimize. In terms of cadence, you know, it is figuring out the best cadence for your game is absolutely crucial, because you don't want to burn players out by having stuff that's just too heavy on the monetization. You don't want to leave money on the table by having stuff that's just too easy to engage with and not spend money on. And you want to avoid all kinds of things like predictability. So, you know, where we started was just with sort of 3 special events. We moved all the way up to 7. It's been lots of tweaking and trying to find out where that lands. One of the things that we like to focus on is simple and effective iteration, right? So we introduced these things called tri-series events. Now, there was no system in the game supporting this, right? All we did is we sort of thematically tied them in a narrative. We said these 3 events are linked, right? So we've got a preliminary, a main event, and then a final event. And this was actually by far some of our most popular and and successful content. So it's been a real benefit to just use these tools very quickly to understand, and of course communicate with players to understand what they enjoy and work with. Another example, we had a starter pack offer that was just under $10. It was a great deal, loads of people picked up on it, it was very, very effective, and we thought, well, why don't we replicate that sort of every 5 levels that a player goes up? So our system allows us to do that very, very quickly and easily. So every 5 levels we had quite a good offer for them, and for our new players, that increased their average revenue, the average revenue per user, by over 25%. So, what is the impact of this sort of expansive metagame and live ops? Well, what you see here is a fairly typical kind of shark fin curve, right? Our monthly active users, we get a big spike at launch where we're supported by the stores, we get some blips here and there where we sort of tweak our user acquisition and get more support here and there. But fundamentally behind that, the more interesting chart is on the right. We're constantly growing this group of hyper-engaged players, sort of level 125 and above. And they're really invested in the game, and those are the ones who will probably be with us for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and continue to spend money on the game. And in terms of revenue, what that impact is that after our launch month, with all of those sort of new users coming in, is that every single month, apart from a few, have been more successful than our launch month because we're growing this set of users. And of course, our end game takes a certain amount of time to get to. And it's the live ops and monetizing these events and things and looking at all kinds of player patterns and behaviors and adjusting to that allows us to benefit from it. So in summary, we design our games with monetizable systems in mind. We use content and offers events and content to engage players and offers to help us monetize our feature set. And then we optimize over time to build on the sustainability of our games. 2 minutes left. Questions? There's a question. Do we do A/B testing? We do A/B testing, yeah. We have a range of tools in order to support A/B testing. We tend to do, I found that we tend to do more, a wider range of A/B testing during development because we can try really crazy things out, right? Once you're in launch, it's harder to do that, particularly with a smaller daily active user count. It's not quite simple. Yes?
So you have all these live ops events in your game. How do you actually notify people that the events are happening and they aren't opening the game every day? What's the most effective notification?
So the question was, we have live ops in our game, how do we notify players of new ones coming up? So we tend to do as much as we can through our in-game social channels, but also our out-of-game forums, which is where we tend to find the most active players engaged with the game. We could definitely do more to sort of support players outside of the game. We do, to be fair, we do have notifications and things like that as well, but we could definitely do more in that area, yeah. Yes? Sorry? In terms of players joining each other. Okay, so the way our events work is that we can choose how big a shard of events, how many people come in, right? So we actually have we grab a couple of servers around the world and then we bundle people accordingly, but we tend to go with 100, 200 or 500 players. That one that I showed earlier was 500 players. And we basically just group them based on trophies. Because all you're doing is picking a card and you're looking at kind of what their hand is and what your hand is, there's no synchronous multiplayer, so we don't need to worry about anything like lag or that kind of thing.